All right, this is the regular scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Athletic Commission. Thank you all for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started.
Hello.
Oh, there's Tom. Great.
I apologize. My computer froze and I was having a little bit of a breakdown.
Oh yeah, no worries. You're at the right place. So we just kicked off. If you want to go ahead and disable your video to help us with the connectivity and the bandwidth, and we'll go ahead and get started. And as soon as we get to you guys, you won't be in doubt. You'll know. We'll pivot and we'll move on.
Very good.
Glad you're here. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, this is called, we called it to order. It's 2:05 at the time that we began for roll call. Ben Grove,
Here.
Matt Reddish,
Here.
Christy Halbert,
Here.
Patrick Wren,
Here.
and Dan McGrew. Okay. Dan is in the air, so we do have quorum. For the notice of meeting, notice of the June 14th, 2021 meeting of the Athletic Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the website since June 16th, 2020. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since June 7th, 2021. For the statement of necessity, as you know, anytime we do a remote video, WebEx, whatever, if we're not physically present, then we have to read the statement of necessity and file that with the Secretary of State's office within the next couple of business days. And then also all of our vote will be by roll call vote. Let me read that into the record. According to TCA 844-108B2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, the governing body must file such determination of necessity, including the recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based, with the Office of Secretary of State no later than 2 working days after the meeting. Furthermore, TCA 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Tennessee Athletic Commission. The purpose of today's meeting with the members attending by WebEx is to discuss the agenda as noticed on the website earlier. We'll entertain a motion to accept that and get that filed away. Do we have such a motion?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, ma'am. We got a motion by Christy Halbert. Do we have a second?
I'll second Matt Reddish.
Thank you, sir. We got a second by Matt Reddish. For a roll call vote, Ben Grove.
Aye.
Matt Reddish.
Aye.
Christy Halbert.
Aye.
Patrick Wren.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll get that filed over there at the Secretary of State's office. For the agenda, I do ask that we have a little bit of flexibility, but I do think that we'll be able to stick to our agenda since we do have all participants. But in the event we need that flexibility, I ask that you permit that. But so far as it is written and printed, do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
This is Matt Reddish. I'll motion to accept.
Thank you, sir. We got a motion from Matt Reddish. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Halbert. All right, we have a second from Christy Halbert for a roll call vote. Ben Grove.
Aye.
Matt Reddish.
Aye.
Christy Halbert.
Aye.
Patrick Wren.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving along then, March minutes. Do we have a vote in regards to accepting the March minutes? Do we have a vote to accept the March minutes?
Matt Reddish. I motion to accept March minutes.
All right, thank you.
I'll second that. Yes.
All right, thank you, Christy Halbert. All right, for roll call vote then, Ben Grove.
Aye.
Matt Reddish.
Aye.
Christy Halbert.
Aye.
And Patrick Wren.
Aye.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. We'll get those filed away as well. For our next portion here, it's bare knuckle boxing. We have a few folks on the line. We've got Miss Melissa Bast. We've also got bare knuckle fighting championship regulator Tom Scallion, Dr. Musi from the Association of Ringside Physicians, and they will be presenting bare knuckle boxing for your consideration next year. Right now, bare knuckle boxing is not permitted in Tennessee, and oversight would require a rule change, which will necessitate a rulemaking hearing. As a result, since we already have one formidable rules package in the pipeline, we won't be taking any official action today or adopting additional rules this year. This will be for informational purposes only. I would like to thank Ms. Bass, Mr. Scallion, and Dr. Musi for taking the time to make this presentation, and to our commissioners, and for being willing to entertain any questions that should arise. I'll go ahead and shift over to you, Ms. Bast, and if you want to make any introductions or present in the order that you desire. We do have your board formation and rules under document 3, commissioners, and under 3A, we've got Dr. Musi's research. So as they're making any references, you'll be able to follow along there should that be necessary. And of course, Ms. Bass, they've had opportunity to digest that over the weekend since receiving those initially from you as well. So they've already reviewed that and went through those documents. So I'll without further ado, I'll yield the floor to you.
Okay, thank you so much, commissioners, for having us and for serving on the commission. I appreciate your time today. And we also have David Feldman, who has joined us, and he is a promoter with the bare knuckle fighting. And this is becoming a very popular sport. And I wanted to bring forward some information from the regulators and from Dr. Muncy for your consideration. I think they are ready to come to Tennessee and would like to explain some of the rules and regulations. And then we can talk about what that looks like, Glenn, maybe for the future and how we can go about the process.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bass. I appreciate that. Would you like to start with Mr. Scallion, or would Dr. Musi like to kick us off?
Yeah, Thomas, do you want to go ahead and do your introduction, and then Dr. Muncy can go ahead and Musi can go ahead and start his presentation.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you very much for the time that your board has given us. And looking at the names on there, my eye keeps going to Katie Long, who, I hope it's the same person, one of my favorite all-time fighters and champions from my age group. That's the same Kathy Long.
Oh, it's a different Katie Long, but we, that's you never know on these meetings.
I was
We
getting
get
all
some.
excited. I was like, oh my God, that's quite a need to be part of the commission.
That's
but
right.
To get back to bare knuckle, Dave Feldman has created an amazing organization, amazing promotion that the time is right. People that have been watching the BFC, UFC, and Bellator were ready for something that just was unstoppable. We're going into our next fight, PKFC, on June 26th in Miami, and the people cannot get enough of it. We really spent a lot of time not only just creating this this juggernaut, but people like Dr. Don Muzzy, who will speak shortly, has been part of the organization in terms of a chief medical consultant, and has been able to keep the data on the last person being there on all these fighters. So what we've created was a sport that I would say has less injuries, but it doesn't have that, that same, very dangerous injury. And Dr. Mosley will go into that. But as a regulator, as somebody who's looked at this, an ISTA, which is one of the largest sanctioned body in the world, we have Corey Schaefer, who's written the rules on the last ABC 2 years ago, the Unified Rules of Kickboxing. He wrote the rules for Glory. He's done so much for regulating the sport and keeping the rules. With all the commissions, where there are no commissions, we step in and we are the regulatory body. And quite honestly, we become a complement to your organization. Your organization does not have to reinvent itself. I will do the training for your referees, your officials, whether it be on Zoom call like this, in person, on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what the differences are between traditional boxing and bare knuckle boxing. And quite honestly, there is very little, but yet that is my role to make your life a lot easier. You do follow any state guidelines that you may have in this day and age with COVID testing, but beyond that, with the blood work, with fighters over a certain age, what would be required for them. So that is my role within the organization, is the intermediary between you and the promoter. So I will pick up my phone at any time, day and night, to answer a question or to be there to represent your best interests and your officials. So from that point of view, I'm going to let Dr. Muzzy explain the most important and what we're here for. It's not whether or not you like bare knuckle or don't like it. It's a sport. We're here to stay. It's growing exponentially. It's giving fans what they want, but it's also protecting the fighters so much more than most sports. And, I think Dr. Muzzy will be able to explain that. Don, do you mind picking up at this point?
Yeah, I will. I think what I'll do is, since you've had a chance to review the presentation, I'll go down just to slide 8 where the data starts. So it'd be 8 out of 17. And in the data I have in front of me, this would have 183 bouts with 366 fighters. And you can see what this is what our results have been. We have about 15.6% of the time the fights end in a KO, 18.8% of the time in a TKO, about 13.9% of fights in decision. Draws have been rather rare at 3. We've had 1 DQ and 1 no contest. I want to talk about the KO thing as we go on. I'll refer to that number, which may appear initially high to you. Now, if we go down then to slide 9, and you'll see I have outcomes. And let me just say, with the way this started, Dave was kind enough for the Florida Commission and had me to the initial BKFC event. And after I did that, I saw an academic opportunity here, because there was a lot of questions and a lot of opinions, but really no answers. So as I've said to Tom and Dave several times, I said, look, no one can argue with facts. Now, I've been at the vast majority, probably 326 of these 366 events. The other remaining I've done off of video and talking to the doctors or in attendance. And going forward, I'm just recording data when I'm present, because it's just easier that way, and I feel in some ways more accurate. So as you look at now slide 9 out of 17, you can see the knockout rate for BKF in blue, the KO rate for BKF and the decision rate for BKF in blue, as compared to boxing and also mixed martial arts. As you can see, the knockout rate in bare knuckle fighting is higher than you expected, based on some things I'm going to tell you going forward. And I just wanted to speak to that. I've kind of coined a term because I can't think of a better term. We'll see what I call beatdown knockouts. That simply means it's almost like, I hate to use the term street fight, but 2 guys just fighting and one guy just gives up. He takes a knee and he just doesn't get up by the count of 10. By definition, that is a knockout. So not all knockouts in BKF, in fact, rather few of them, as you'll see going forward, are related to head injuries. They're related to body shots, and just fighters just had enough. They just kind of give up at this point. I will also comment, when you watch this sport, I've watched it evolve since I've been involved since the beginning. I've seen the fighters. You can tell an experienced bare knuckle fighter comes out because their targets have changed. Their head targets are really from the brow to the chin, and body targets. They cannot throw hard punches, kind of a hard overhand right, if you would, that may hit the temple or the top of the skull, because they learn that rather quickly. So the target areas have changed, and that will, as you'll see going forward, where that may have impacted what our results have been. I'm going to go to the next slide now that looks at bare knuckle injuries. So of the 366 fighters, we have had
Dr. Musi, let me
156.
interrupt you for just a
Go ahead.
second. We're on page number 10, commissioners, if you're following along. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have. I'll remind you the page numbers as we go forward. So it's page 10, and it's in bold red heading, bare knuckle injuries. So 42.6 of the fighters, in this case, 156 out of 366 have been injured. As you can see, the vast majority are lacerations. You have about a 28% chance of having a laceration when you get into the ring, and this is a laceration that requires sutures. Hand fracture rate, we've had 11, so that's 3%. I have it broken down into some just initial where the fractures have been. We have some orbital fractures, and we've had 4 of those. We've transported 12 fighters to the hospital, have had 5 hand lacerations, 9 nasal fractures, and a concussion rate of 3.47%, or 12 out of the 366 fighters were diagnosed, meeting criteria for concussion at ringside by myself, or in the case of the first 30 fighters or so, by another doctor. I'm going to skip. Well, maybe you should take a look at this slide, lacerations, because the sport does have a high incidence of lacerations, but as you can see, I have different sporting events, and the lacerations would have happened. So they do happen in combative sports. Now, it's facial lacerations. So really, like I said, you have a 28% chance of having a facial laceration. This is per 100 fighters. In other words, athlete exposure. The percent that lacerations represent is 73% of the injuries. So 74% of the injuries that occur with bare knuckle fighting are lacerations. Boxing, it's like 30% of the injuries, and mixed martial arts, about 48% of the injuries. That's from the Zazarin and Bledsoe studies. I got that data from. Now, I want to speak a little bit about, and I'm on slide 12 there, sorry. That would be slide 12. Okay, I'm going to jump to 13, and I want to speak a little bit more about lacerations, but I like this slide because this is where I was surprised. I had thought we were going to see a higher hand fracture rate, but we are not seeing that right now. The hand fracture rates are actually less than one sees in boxing and in mixed martial arts, and only 3% in BKF. You could argue that they're not statistically different. They may not be between MMA and BKF. I haven't run that kind of, it's hard to do those statistics when you're going to look at retrospective studies that were done by another author, but those are our numbers. They're clearly not different, and may even be lower. I'm going to go to the next slide, which is 14. That's concussion per 100 athletes. Now, bare knuckle fighting has a lower incidence of concussion compared to boxing and MMA, which boxing has about 6 to 12%, depending on which study you read. Mixed martial arts, the same thing, 14.7. This is again from the Zazarin and Bledsoe studies. And bare knuckle about 3.4%. So,
Tom, you guys might want to, sorry, sir, if everyone could put those on mute, because we're getting a little feedback from somebody's phone. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Musi.
So we'll okay, I'm going to just anticipate some questions. So, first of all, why is this? Secondly, what about your high knockout rate? Well, I talked about the knockout rate, but by definition, a knockout is a fighter that does not get up by the count of 10. That doesn't mean he's had a head injury. It could have been a liver punch or just the body beatdowns, if you would, that they just don't get up. I think, simply put, as I've watched the sport evolve, the fighters they can't punch as hard. These aren't these wild, I'll call them the Dante Wilder overhand rights that just come in wailing. They can't do that because they will injure their hand. They quickly figure that out in the sport. For yourself, I would just say put a boxing glove on, 14-ounce glove, hit the wall, take it off, hit it again. You're clearly not going to hit the wall as hard with that glove off. And remember, it's those impact forces, the rotational forces, the gyrations of the head and the brain, which cause the concussion. So this does make sense to me that we're seeing less concussions in bare knuckle fighting. I'll jump to slide 15. So here's a summary of the injuries that we've had. There's been 156 injured fighters. As you see, the vast majority are lacerations. I got a little arithmetic error there. This is, I think in the last slide I had 28.9. 29.8 is the correct number. There's the hand fracture rate orbital fractures. You can see mandibular fractures, and then we've had nasal fractures and 5 hand lacerations. Now, I'm calling 12 traumatic brain injuries, and that is, in other words, concussion with some symptoms. And we have sent 12 fighters to the hospital, either for fractures or suspected brain injury. I will tell you that in all those fighters, other than the pauses we had for the mandibular fractures and the orbital fractures, there have been no significant brain injuries. By that, I mean no brain injuries which one could see in a CT scan, implying there have been hemorrhages, subdural hematomas, things of that nature. And just here's some injuries, just a little more additional information. I'm on slide 16 right now. We've had, again, fighters sent to the hospital. There were 7 to rule out traumatic brain injury. There was no pathology found on the CT scan. 1 fighter for a neck hematoma, which is, I've seen that before in mixed martial arts, particularly with kicks to the throat. 4 fighters for facial fractures, 1 mandible, 1 condylar, that's part of the mandible as well, 2 orbital fractures. And then we've had dental injuries. We've had a couple of teeth knocked out, and what I mean by alveolar process, that's the bone that surrounds the teeth. So that's really the summary of our injuries there. And just to go on, I'm on slide 17 right now. We know that you're going to have an increased facial laceration rate. The hand fracture rate is 3%. And there's the mixed martial arts and the boxing at 4.7%. Has a lower concussion rate, rounded to 3.5%, where the boxing concussion rate, MMA concussion rate is 6 to 12 or 14.7%. So in short, the fighters have an increased chance of having a facial laceration, lower chances of having hand fractures or concussions. Now, I just want to speak a little bit about lacerations. You know, lacerations are superficial injuries. The fighter is not going to, I'm going to put a few stitches in there. We know the average fighters requires about 6 stitches. In 45 to 60 days, they're ready to fight again and they're fine. So although it could look a little rough when you see the hemorrhage or the blood in the ring, lacerations are very mild injuries. When you talk to your fighters, they would much rather be cut than have an orthopedic injury to their shoulder, knee, or certainly an injury to their brain. And that's it. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Okay, we'll pause for just a second here. I know that the commissioners had a chance to absorb this over the weekend. Did anybody have something that just jumps out at them? Of course, we can always circle back as well. I know these experts have, kindly offered their time to do so. Do we have anybody that had something that just pops off at them right away? Okay. Thank you, Doctor. That's really good information. I appreciate you too putting this in slide form for us so that we can sort of hold on to this and then refer back to this as well. I imagine that it's going to take some time to sort of allow that to marinate and to sort of make the connections on those comparisons. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and likewise, Glenn, if you at any time you have any questions, you need more information, don't hesitate to reach out for me. And like this study is evolving, although I will say it's been accepted for publication. I can't name the journal yet because they want us to do a couple of revisions, which are primary grammatical. Until it's officially in the books, I can't name the journal, but this will be published in the sports journal soon.
I see Patrick sits on your board as well from Florida. We compare notes periodically, so it sounds like we've got a lot of good resources around us. And Tom, are you the sanctioning body as well as the regulator?
Actually, as I said earlier, ISK, my role is to be that regulator, intermediary between commissions and the promotion. In states where we do not have an ABC, an active ABC, I will step in as the sanctioning body. But generally,
Gotcha.
if there's an ABC, I'm working with you and following your rules, guidelines, and working to get your officials up to speed to be able to get in a ring and ref with their judges. So that is my role. It can be either one, independent sanctioning, independent regulation, or as a complement to your commission.
Okay, I understand. I appreciate that. I was asking for a sense of clarity for us because we have to prove sanctioning body, so that would be just an additional step. It's not more difficult. It's just another step. So trying to keep all separated.
Yeah, as an interesting point, there are places where the ABC is inundated and overwhelmed. ISK can step in as an approved sanctioning body under your guidance. I become an arm of your sanctioning of your commission, and we'll sanction the event for you.
All right, very well. That's helpful. Ms. Bass, did you have any additional comments? Okay. Thank you guys for making yourself available for giving us
Ben, you
this
will
good
be
information.
seeing us at the convention in
I'm
Orlando.
sorry, Glenn.
Oh,
I'm
there we
here
go.
now.
Okay, yeah, must have been trying to find that mute. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. One of the questions I had is, I understand we would have to adopt the rules for bare knuckle fighting since they are separate from from the other organizations that have come through our state. But from my understanding, if we allowed ISKA to sanction bare knuckle fighting, we already have ISKA approved as a sanctioning body.
Yeah,
Am
that's
I
a good
correct
question.
on that?
No, that's a good question, and the Tennessee Athletic Commission, we sanction MMA, kickboxing is a part of that, and then boxing. We sent this for a legal opinion back in 2000 and I guess 2018, shortly or no 2019, shortly after the event in Wyoming, for an opinion, and it was determined that we do have authority to sanction once, but it's implied, but it's not stated. So therefore, we'd have to make a rule to sanction bare knuckle boxing. So right now, as it stands, it's boxing and MMA encompassing kickboxing. ISKA is approved. They're approved for kickboxing only. And so they'd also have to go through the process, and that they're actually on the agenda today to have that discussion for the boxing side of things too, but wouldn't necessarily encompass bare knuckle boxing until it was made a part of our rule package.
Okay.
But yeah, great question. That's definitely worth noting. Okay. Any other questions from our commission? All right. Thank you so much. I imagine we'll be in touch, and as this conversation's ongoing. And to your point too, Tom, thank you for noting that about the conference. We are looking forward to that. Our Commissioner Alex was on here earlier. You may have just missed him. He'll be attending that along with our staff attorney who's present, and she'll be spearheading a lot of that that process as it pertains to the rules. So I'm sure she'll have some questions, and we're looking forward to gleaning from that opportunity.
Very good.
All right, thank you so much. We'll move on then to the next item on the agenda. We have the director's report. Let me get to that, to the budget.
Glenn, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but is it okay if we excuse ourselves right now?
Yes, sir. You're good to go. We won't be circling back, and if we have anything else, we're done with that portion of the agenda. As we continue to explore bare knuckle boxing, we have your contact information, and of course, Miss Bass will be in regular contact with us as well, so we can do that there. And it should we have to come back before the board for any official business, then certainly we'll make that clear. But right now, we're good.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, ma'am. You all have a good day. All right, members, you should have the budget before you. At the last meeting, we went over the reserves in this fiscal year's expenses and revenues through December. As a result, we will primarily focus on the last 3 months of record, which will be January through March. The only thing that stood out to me, and of course, you may have some questions of your own, and we'll be happy to entertain those, but just upon review of the last 3 months, the only thing that stood out to me was the increase in admin cost backs and technology compared to year prior, which were both specifically related to our share of the expenses coming from the core vendor, resulting from upgrades that were made benefiting all of regulatory boards. So there was an upgrade. We went from core to a 2.0 version, and some updates or upgrades to the functionality of that was shared across regulatory boards, our program being one of those. And that's our share of the expense for March that was billed to us then. But other than that, as you know, we typically run into the red until we have a big event. We're doing the best we can to manage our expenses by leveraging part-timers. We did experience a decrease in part-time inspectors during COVID. As you can imagine, a lot of folks weren't looking for extra work and that sort of additional exposure potentially. So we did lose some, but we're picking some of those back up, and we're also increasing our stable of folks that we can send out. So we're going to beef that up, and always looking for opportunities or ways that we can cut and leverage some of even our licensing staff. We've done that on occasion in those local events and save some costs there as well, to include travel. Another way we save expenses is by doing remote meetings when we're not traveling to the building unnecessarily. There'll be opportunities where we'll have to do that with rulemaking hearings. There'll be some of that certainly, or perhaps if we were to have a formal something in that regard. We'll try not to stay out too long, but for the most part, this will probably be our new normal for a while with the remote meetings. I haven't heard any sort of affirmatives as far as the big events this year. There's been some chatter, but I don't want to get the rumor mill started. We'll just wait and see what happens there. You know, a lot of things will move along, and you don't really know until you secure the venue. So there does seem to be some interest in our area, and hopefully that'll materialize and shake itself out. But right now, I don't have anything else to report except for that it looks about normal year end to year end, and besides that March number for which we have an expense for that, so we know what that is. Any other questions in regards to the budget? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on. That's just for informational purposes. That's for your own edification, so we can nothing for us to vote there. ISKA sanctioning boxing in particular. Okay. All right, let's see. All right. We won't be taking any official action there today. First of all, let me just ask, do we have any representatives from ISKA boxing here today? Okay. Weren't necessarily planning on that since we didn't have anything actionable today. We're just trying to introduce ISKA as the basically as the sanctioning body for boxing. There won't be any further discussion until our staff attorney can conduct a legal analysis of ISKA rules against our rules per Rule 145-5-02, which states the following. And this is the standard for which we evaluate all sanctioning bodies, whether they're sanctioning MMA or boxing. So here's the standard. Let me just read that rule to you, and then in that frame, that context, you'll understand why we need the legal analysis like we have done before. The commission will only approve and recognize those amateur sanctioning organizations that are able to establish and enforce rules regarding safety and rules regarding amateur conduct during unarmed combat as strict as or stricter than those established by the Commission for Professional Unarmed Combat Contests. So we're looking at safety and amateur conduct. So those rules in our pro table we'll be comparing with ISKA boxing table, and then having that discussion. Won't be happening today. They did submit the rules. You have those before you, but we're not going to do the deep dive until probably September, maybe even as late as December. We'll take as long as we need to make sure we do that right. But Pam, our staff attorney, you all know her well. We'll be getting in those and sort of putting a hand in the dough and making that comparison. And then, of course, we'll circle back with you, the experts, if we have any sort of industry-specific questions as that relates. So looking forward to having that conversation. Georgia, just for your information, is the only state where ISK is actively sanctioning amateur boxing, and Florida will be added soon. So we would be among, if we were to approve sanctioning for boxing, we would be one of three. Right now, ISKA is sanctioning, they are an approved sanctioning body in Tennessee, but for kickboxing and MMA only. So we have not approved them for boxing yet. The only recognized sanctioning body for boxing right now is USA Boxing. So that's all I had. Unless any of the members had any discussion or any comments, I welcome those. But this is for introduction purposes only. I just wanted you to have that well in advance, so the next 3 months you can sort of be digesting that, and of course doing your own analysis as you compare our rules with their rules. And the prongs you're looking at, again, safety, amateur conduct. All right. Any questions? All right, thank you. I think we're ready for the meeting dates. It's hard to believe it's already that time again, but it can get kind of crowded in the conference room. So we always have to do this a little bit earlier than sometimes than one would anticipate. So although the middle of the year, we're setting conference rooms aside and meeting dates for next year. Now we've saved the conference room should we need that for a formal or for a rulemaking hearing. But unless we have something like that, we'll probably be continuing to do these remote. I'll let you just take a look at those. That's March 14th, June 13th, September 12th, and December 12th for next year. I trust you guys have were able to look at your calendar. Is there those? And we put those dates up compared to the same pattern that we used this year and the year prior. Will those dates work for everyone? And of course, avoiding all state holidays as well. Okay. If so, we will entertain a vote to approve those meeting dates. Do we have such a motion? Do we have a motion from one of our members to approve the meeting dates for next year?
I'll make that motion.
Matt Reddish, I motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reddish. Ben, were you going to make the second on that?
Yeah, I'll make the second on that.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. We got a motion from Matt Reddish, a second from Ben Grove. For roll call vote, Ben Grove,
Aye.
Matt Reddish,
Aye.
Christy Halbert,
Aye.
Patrick Wren.
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. We'll get those posted to the website. You can go ahead and mark your calendars, and then we'll get that going. All right. Looks like we're ready for the legal report. Pam?
Yes, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Can
Good
everyone hear
afternoon.
me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Again, this is Pam Spicer, Chief Counsel for the department. I'll be presenting the legal report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone has. You've had the opportunity to review the report. For purposes of the record, I will read the complaint numbers. The first one is 2021-012841. This was a complaint opened against a promoter involving a score at a boxing event that was scored incorrectly. My recommendation is closure on that particular complaint. I'll go ahead with the second one and then be happy to answer any questions just so we have everything read into the record. The second complaint is 2021-040611. That is a combatant, and this involves a weigh-in at an event where the combatant displayed unprofessional conduct towards our inspector. I am recommending closure with a letter of warning. On complaint number 2. Those are the two complaints that I have to present today, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. If there are no questions, we'll just need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote to approve the report.
All right, members, are there any questions in regards to either one of those cases? Okay. Hearing none, then we'll entertain a motion to accept council's recommendation. Do we have such a motion?
I move to approve.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wren. We got a motion from Patrick Wren. Do we have a second? Do we have a second from another member?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Albert. For roll call vote then, unless there being any other comments or questions, we'll move to roll call vote. That would be Ben Grove,
Aye.
Matt Reddish,
Aye.
Christy Halbert,
Aye.
Patrick Wren.
Aye.
All right, thank you, folks. We'll get that one taken care of then. Pam, I think we're ready for the rules update.
Yes, and this will not require a vote. This is an update to you, commission members. First, I want to start with Public Chapter 549 that was recently signed into law by the governor. I don't think you have it before you, but I'm going to explain to you what what these laws changed as it relates to the Athletic Commission, because it was a large bill that had to do with several different of our regulatory agencies. The Athletic Commission is affected in Section 38 and 39. In 38, it amended TCA 68-115-108A1, whereby we do not need to meet at least quarterly any longer. So the specific language was the commission shall meet at least quarterly, but may meet as often as the duties of the commission require. The law has now been changed to the commission shall meet as often as the duties of the commission require. It removed the wording of as at least quarterly, but may meet. So that will hopefully help. As Glenn was discussing the budget, I was kind of thinking that this law would help hopefully in that regard. This will also not require a rule change, and the law becomes effective October 1, 2021. It is effective now as it relates to rules if there would need to be a rule change. The second law change is Section 39. This affects TCA 68-115-206B1. And give me a minute to flip to that. This is the law related to medical examinations. The law's been changed to 90 days from 30 days. For purposes of the record, I'll read the law as it was and then now as it is, or as it will be as of October 1st. All combatants applying for a license under this chapter shall be required to submit upon application proof that a medical exam has been performed and blood tests have been taken for infectious diseases or for any other purpose required by the commission within 30 days of applying for a license or renewal of a license. The only change with that section of the law is 30 has now been changed to 90 days. However, this will require a rule change because under our current rules, 0145-01.035, that currently says 30 days, and so it will need to be changed to 90 days, which leads me to our rules update. The rules that we had pending are still pending. They were going to move towards final approval, but now that this law will be in effect in October, we will need to pull the rules, and at the next meeting, I will need to have you all vote on a new rules package, which will make this amendment to make the rule consistent with the new law. So in September, we will need to vote on a rules package that will encompass this new change, and those will travel with the existing rules so that we do not have two rules packets pending at the same time.
And Pam, do you suspect that once we vote in September, just to add this to the package, and members, just to strike your, to sort of jog your memory, that's the unified rules and the failure to appear section that's been traveling for a while now. We're going to add this to that. That'll be in September. Do you believe that potentially we're shooting for a rulemaking hearing in not September, but rather December, at least projected? We may not hit it, but we're going to be kind of seeking that.
That was my original plan, to either have the pending rules in September or December, but now that we need to add or make a change to the section that I just read, we can shoot for December, but there are some timelines that have to be met as far as the notice that I have to give to the public, which is about 60 days, give or take, with the notifies that have to go out before we can have a rulemaking hearing. So it will just depend on where the approvals are at the necessary, by the September meeting, basically.
Right. Okay. Thank you for
So in other words, after we vote, sorry, I kind of misspoke, but at the September meeting, after we vote on the new change from 30 to 90, Then, once those rules travel through the approval process, I'll have to see if I can still meet a 60-day deadline, basically.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. I appreciate that. Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any other questions if there's any. If not, again, this was just an update, not a vote. I will amend the current rules package to include this update, given the new law that's passed, and get those in the pipeline for you all to vote on in September.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Appreciate that. All right, members, any questions in regards to the rules update? Administratively, I think this was a win for administration, just in the sense that both sections, the first one is that's not forcing us to have meetings when we don't need any. Now, that hasn't been a problem in the past or the last couple years because we've had so much business. But should we kind of get to a point where we've ironed out much of this, then we don't want to be forced to have meetings by statute that we don't need. So this is nice that it's business need is driving this and not some sort of arbitrary quarterly requirement. So that's good. And then with the medicals, it's giving these fighters a little bit more time to get that in. Sometimes 30 days doesn't seem like that much, but when you're trying to get blood work, physical, neuro, and all the others lined up, eye exam, depending on where they're coming from, where they're at, it can be sort of tight. And so that 90 days is, I think, will be helpful on that end as well, especially for those cross-border fighters. If they've already had that done in the last couple months, they can resubmit that on our forms, and they're good to go, thereby saving some expense. So I think this is going to be good for the program all the way around.
And Glenn, just to add, this does not affect the neuro part. That's under
That's
a
correct.
different
Correct. Thank you. Yes, that's
section
correct.
of 206, 68
That's correct.
115 206 B2, just for everyone's information, is the part of the statute that deals with the neurological exam, which is still 30 days.
Correct. Yep. So this will be blood work, eye exam, physical only is what we're looking at.
Correct.
Yeah. Neuro is 30 days. Thank you for that. Just reiterating that, Pam, and sort of emphasizing that. That's a good point. All right. That's all we have then on that. I think, Pam, unless you had any other comments, I think we're ready for the next step. Lisa, the next step
No,
or the next
I have
line.
nothing else.
Okay. All right. It looks like we're ready for new business. Does anyone have any new business or anything that they'd like to introduce, discuss? Okay, it looks like we're going to have some work ahead of us in the next couple meetings. Of course, I'll keep everyone informed as to what our part in that will be, and I'll make sure that you have all the support you need to make an informed decision and to continue to participate. And I suspect Dan will be back. He'll be back on the ground and able to join us as well. So we look forward to his participation and the work that lies ahead for all of us. Hearing that there's unless someone has any last minute comments, I think we're ready for the adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you, Ms. Halbert. We got a motion from Christy Halbert. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Matt Reddish. We've got a second from Matt and a motion from Christy Halbert for roll call vote. Ben Grove.
Aye.
Matt Reddish.
Aye.
Christy Halbert.
Aye.
Patrick Wren.
Aye.
Thank you all. I appreciate this. So we are adjourned, and then we'll look forward to hearing from everybody in September the 20th.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.